legal child prostitution, right? I know on the surface you probably be like, no way, nobody is legalized child prostitution in the United States. But there's a particular state that has legalized child prostitution, and it happened maybe about a good 6 years ago, right? Now listen, let me say this, right? If you are from this particular state that I'm about to name, there's no need for you to take offense to this. You don't create the laws of your state. I'm not talking about you as an individual person, right? But if the state legalized child prostitution, it legalized it. I mean, the offense or the anger should be directed to, how could you even do this in the first place? Not just the person delivering a message that child prostitution is legal in this state, right? So this is no knock against you, but it just is what it is. Another thing, before I get into it, I want to say, when I talk to people about this, they immediately just don't believe it because it sounds unbelievable. They either get defensive or they may focus on the reason why it got legalized. The reason is one thing, and we're going to talk about that. But the fact that it's legal should be the main issue here, not why they did it. Okay, child prostitution has been legalized in the state of California. Yes, it has. It's true. Okay, let's read it real quick. It says SB Senate Bill 322, as amended May 31st, 2016. The summary says decriminalizes prostitution for those under 18 years of age, clarifies that a minor may be taken into temporary custody under limited circumstances, specifically this bill. Okay, see, specifies that the statutes which makes solicitation of prostitution and loitering with intent to commit prostitution misdemeanors does not apply to children under the age of 18 who is alleged to have engaged in such conduct to receive money or other payment. Then it goes on to say, states that a commercially sexualized exploited child may be taken into temporary custody if the fact that the child is left unattended poses an immediate threat to the child's health or safety or other specified criteria. Okay, let's dig a little deeper into this real quick. All right, okay. A recent amendment to the bill now requires that those accused of soliciting sex with minors, specifically aged 16 or 17, can only be charged with a felony if the victim was also a victim of sex trafficking. So look, now, if this is strictly, because, the reasoning is, okay, this is to protect minors, so to speak, right? But a 17-year-old is considered a minor. So if somebody want to buy them and have sex with them, why wouldn't you want to charge that with a felony? Because even the age of consent in California is 18. So according to their own law, someone under 16 or 17 is legally considered a minor. So why wouldn't you? That's very troubling. So this basically saying you can go buy a child, have sex with them, and they won't charge you with a felony. So if this really supposed to be to protect children in the first place, why isn't the adult who going to buy them still not be charged with a felony unless they're at least 15? Some people will probably focus on the reason why they legalized it. Let's talk about that, right? Now, it was said that they legalized it because some underage kids, they have been or they can be victimized by a older pimp or somebody who's like in a sex trafficking industry or something of that nature, right? An adult can get one of these kids and use the kid, manipulate the kid, get the kid to do things that they shouldn't be doing sexually, prostitution wise. And they say that they would, since the kid is being manipulated or being used, they wouldn't want the kid to get caught up legally or get a record of something of that nature, because they was really victimized or preyed upon by an adult who was doing wrong and knew they was doing wrong, so they wouldn't want the kid to I guess get punished for that. On the surface, that sounds nice, But really think about that, right? What crime, if you have a kid that's a drug dealer, if you got a kid who steals cars and sell them to certain people, or a car dealer, in a bunch of situations, a kid who's committed, you got a lot of older people who sell drugs, and to get a little kid to, hey, take these drugs and give it to this person, take these drugs and give it to that person, because they feel like, the penalty will be lesser for that child. If a child is being used by an adult in any situation to do illegal activity, it's a child versus an adult. He's always being manipulated and used, right? So that principle of why they legalize child prostitution, it applies in a plethora of different crimes, right? So if you really going off that principle, why just apply it to child prostitution? You see what I'm saying? Now here's the thing. Now we do know, for the same reasons why they want to legalize have legalized child prostitution. Basically, the child can be a victim, the child can be manipulated, this and that and thus and so, right? That's the very exact same, that's the very exact same reasons why you want to make sure a child have rules and regulations. An adult would be more equipped to not have rules. I'm not saying adults don't need rules and regulations, but when you get older, mentally, you're more developed, you're just more mature, you have more life experience, you have a better chance of making better decisions than a child. If you have, let's say it's not even child prostitution or sex, it can just be something that's not even illegal. It could just be something that a parent typically would make sure their child going to school. If you just tell a child, hey, you can go to school or you cannot go. I mean, do you really want a child needs guidance, a child needs rules, a child needs regulations, a child needs to be directed in a certain path. You don't just let a child run loose. You know what I'm saying? And in this instance, like I say, why would you just in this lane of sex, when that principle while you're doing it can apply in a lot of different areas? Why would you want now a child could just legally, they could just go out and do it on their own. Why not? It's legal. Why would you, and I know people say, well, sex is a victimless crime. In this case, the actual victim would be the child themselves, who don't have anything to deter them from going out there and selling their bodies to whoever they want. They can legally do it, and they're trying to minimize the consequences, or have minimized or got rid of the consequences for doing it. Why would you put a child who's not fully developed mentally, emotionally, socially, who really needs structure and why would you put them, set up a social climate for them to be able to just run wild sexually like that, right? That's what I'm saying. You couldn't come up with nothing else? What about the other things that the children can be manipulated into doing? Don't you got something in place for that? And let me say this, right? Because some people do this, which really kind of trips me out a little bit sometimes. Don't politicize this. If a certain party is against it, or a certain party, that's irrelevant. No, I don't care about no party in relation to this. I don't care who's with it or who's against it. Should this really be done? That's the question. Because some people get caught up in that too. All Democrats this, all Republicans this. Yeah, that's the Republicans saying, no, because man, who cares? This shouldn't be legal. Why should this be legal? No matter who is for it or who's it, why should it be? It shouldn't be. So don't get caught up in the political thing, right? And you're probably gonna hear me say that on other videos too, because it really applies. Just being your home state or your home city, you kind of, be born and raised there, and look, that ain't got nothing to do with nothing. Wherever I'm from, wherever you from, just because you're from a place that you love the place, hey, it don't mean that they're exempt from being in fault, from being wrong, for handling something wrong. It is what it is. Judge the issue itself individually, and stop and remove the emotional attachments or the allegiances you may have to certain parties or certain things or certain areas. That ain't got, look at the individual issue for what it is. Child prostitution legalized. That's what it is, right? And the reason why they're saying it shouldn't be legalized, despite the reason that's been said, you shouldn't let a child run wild sexually with no. You should not. You're victimizing the very person that you're saying you're trying to protect. You created a social climate for them to be victimized by the people who are going to buy for them. So what if them adults get arrested? That child is still victimizing themselves. Still, you don't want to keep that. You don't want that social climate. You don't want that to be the case. So you're helping to victimize the very same people or persons that you say you're trying to protect. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. And it can open up the door for more things sexually or in any other way to start getting legalized. That's how it starts. You may have heard me say in certain videos about not having a bottom line. And if you don't have a bottom line, your bottom line can be created, manipulated, and given to you over and over again until you have a new bottom line, because your bottom line is what the majority say of what's been accepted as the norm. This can just easily be a gateway to even more sinister stuff being ushered in because this got in. And if somebody want to bring about something sinister, make child prostitution legal or something, you think they can just flat out do it? They have to give a reason to say, oh, this is the reason why, and try to make it sound legit. Because if you can't feed somebody all garbage. You got to mix the garbage with some type of seasoning or blend some goodness with it. No one will receive all garbage. So of course you're going to get some reasoning behind it. Until you get to the point where they don't need none, because little by little they just keep introducing things, making certain things normal and accepted, and bam, now pure garbage can just get through just at face value on the surface, and the social climate already been set by other things that they usher in little by little. I might have said that in other videos that you saw, and you probably will hear me say it again, because that principle applied about not having a bottom line and it being able to, your new bottom line can be created and given to you over and over again if you don't have one. It applies in a bunch of areas, not just this area.